Oh boy, antiquated 2000s pop punk that tries overly hard to be foul-mouthed and youthful, going as far as getting both Machine Gun Kelly and Black Bear and typecasting them in the same role as the millennial delinquent boyfriend. Fun. I think Avril might have a musical variant of Benjamin Button's disease, where the older she gets, the less mature her music becomes. To sum up my thoughts, I like her Hello Kitty song more than I like anything on this album. And I hate that song. Ha! Love sucks. More like, this album sucks. I was mildly interested in this new album of theirs. I liked their last one despite how inconsistent it was, and I think most of the time when I hear Earthgang featured on a song, they stand out. I think they're very talented, but that just hasn't translated well into a truly standout effort of their own, and I think this new album is just a huge step back. It is loaded with so much basic contemporary stylings of trap and southern hip-hop and bland R&B influences. None of the instrumentals really had any flavor to them whatsoever. They were pretty forgettable, and despite the conscious and introspective lyrical content at times, the flows and hooks were pretty run-of-the-mill. Most of the features didn't do it for me outside of CeeLo Green on the song Power. It tries to be a fun and thoughtful album, but severely misses the mark on both of those directives. The messaging and sentiments are cool, but in terms of the music itself, I was thoroughly underwhelmed. Plus, it being like 50 minutes long just made it a very drawn-out experience. It's not for me. I am pretty much a pleb when it comes to Tears for Fears. I really only know about them because of Shout, so my perspective going into this album was one without the context of their legacy or their back catalog. So to me, this is like my first real-time introduction into their material, and after listening to it, I wanted to like it more than I did, because there are some pretty good qualities about it. It's very well produced and mixed. I think the vocals sound crisp, the songwriting is neat, and the cinematically lush presentation at times, where the filmic winds just swell up, produces moments of like sonic bittersweet bliss, like on the songs Please Be Happy, Long Time, and Rivers of Mercy especially. But for me, it's a bit too clean, a bit too sanitized, a bit too polished to a fault, which is strange to say because that level of audio fidelity should be praised. But to me, it just became very detrimental to my listening experience. I often had to re-listen to some songs like 3 or 4 times just for me to really gauge whether I liked it or not. And even then, it was difficult for me to determine that fact because the music sometimes was just, decent. Like, it's well produced and well sung, but didn't really strike a chord with me. To be clear, I don't dislike any of the songs here, but they just kind of rang hollow of personality to me. Everything just started to blend together. It lacks a certain command and edge to it, so a good part of it just breezed right by me. The album is not bad by any means, but more often than not, it just left me feeling ambivalent. For any of you looking for some maximalist chamber pop, look no further. This album has a ton of awe-inspiring peaks and beautiful crescendos, especially in the middle of the album where it's just banger after banger after banger after banger. Like, the production is so good. The songwriting and vocals, however, took some time for me to get adjusted to because it was very reminiscent of Adam Granduchel from The War on Drugs in terms of the vocalists, mannerisms and vocal tones. But once I got past that, the album became way more enjoyable for me. The lyrics are pretty hard-hitting with topics of grief, disparity, and loss. For the most part, I did enjoy what was here, although there were some songs where it felt like the instrumental and the vocals were on completely different wavelengths. I would attribute that to the amelodic vocals at times and the very minimal production at times. It's kind of a fault on both ends. Don't have too much else to say about it. I think a lot of people will get more out of it than I did, but it is very well performed and it's very pretty. I liked it overall. Usually when it comes to post-rock, there is a very sacred structure to uphold, establishing openings, big builds, and climactic finishes. This album completely neglects those principles, and it ends up being one of the most loose post-rock albums I have ever heard. It's like musical entropy of sorts. Songs will literally break down and fall apart before your very ears, and they will never get pieced back together. Not to mention, in terms of its sound palette, there's sublime uses of lavish instrumentation, but for most of it, it's pretty minimal, especially when the songs start to deteriorate. There is no sound cue as to when they will happen either. It's just kind of part of the experience. That feeling feeling of anticipation is just non-existent. So what I'm describing may sound like it's a mess of an album, but in practice, it's quite impressive how engaging it is. The mixtures of post-rock, Midwest emo, and avant-folk often seesaw at will, even in the middle of songs. Like the song Good Morning Red with a Bed of Strings is absolutely gorgeous and then transitions into like an arrhythmic drum and drone session, almost as if it was completely improvised. My favorite on the album has to be the song Skydiving Onto the Library Roof. That main forlorn horn and string lead is so blissfully gray. I was dreaming of walking through an empty metropolitan city in black and white. Now, of course, given how loose the album is, naturally a couple of experiments left me wanting more, especially the closer, but overall, the more I listened to this album, the more I came to love it. It's definitely a grower, but it's worth the investment in my opinion. I cannot wait to hear what they do next. It's a neat dream pop indie rock album. Alyssa is very young. I think she's around 16 or 17. So hearing how fundamentally sound she is pretty impressive. The sound for the most part is what you would expect from an indie rock / dream pop album. Some dreamy layers of synth, some scuzzled guitar work, light drums, and some airy and analytical vocals to boot as well. Her songwriting style has room to grow, but it does shine in a couple of songs like the title track in Gothenburg English, where the progression of the song centers around what is happening lyrically, and I'm a huge sucker for that kind of shit. It's like sonic synthesis. I have no idea how else to describe it. Most of the songs are solid. I didn't hear anything I ever had disdain or disinterest in. It's a solid album, and she has a big ceiling, so I'm looking forward to her future efforts. If you were craving some dreamy, heavily atmospheric, and uplifting shoegaze, don't miss out on this album. There is a ton of swirling and sweeping juices of synthesizers and off-worldian guitar work that provides some pretty elevated moments of dreamy post-rock euphoria. The choruses pop, the vocals are bleary yet soothing, the sound is colorful but not overbearingly so. My favorites are Lost in the Wait, Where Did You Go, and It's All a Memory. I don't have much else to say about this album besides by the time I was done with it, I immediately wanted to experience those intoxicating highs again. I think it's great. Like I said, don't miss out. This is one of the most interesting musical experiences I've had this year. It's like a mix of ancient spiritual stuff and modern technology in a way. The gothic orchestral elements are impressive, and how the dark electronics interweave with the sound on top of its soaring vocals and background chants creates a lot of larger-than-life moments, bursting at the seams with tidal waves of grand arrangements on a massive scale. Amidst the overly epic scale of the music on this album, the biggest thing I appreciate about it is how kind of like a modern day opera it is. The presentation makes me feel like I'm sitting in a theater watching a live artsy musical performance filled with hundreds of dancers, numerous amount of set props and shifting imagery, waving flags on top of over-the-top animatronics and pyrotechnics. It's very cinematic for sure, and the way it links the track listing all together results in some airtight cohesion and consistency, and that quality makes the album a bit niche or narrow in the regards that I don't think I can just pick up a song and listen to it outside of the album. I have to listen to the entire thing, otherwise I'm just missing the foundation that a song builds off of, and it just doesn't hit right. It's like watching a movie 30 minutes after it started. Would I call that a weakness? No, not really. There are a handful of albums I feel the same way about, and those albums end up being their own special experiences, so this one's really not any different. Really, the only gripe I had was that it does induce moments of deja vu in some songs. Certain progressions and vocal cues just sound rehashed with very little variance. Overall though, I really liked it. I would definitely recommend. Emily has always been interesting to me because her singer-songwriter style is shrouded in foreboding cinematic flair, fit with uses of orchestral elements to accentuate that slow burning emotion that just sears into your skin. Compared to her last album, which was pretty animated, this one is much slower in tempo with an emphasis on being cerebral. For example, the song David's Got a Problem has a grueling pace, chilling piano leads, and a dark soundscape that is met later on with violin drones, and the repetition of the lyrics don't get tedious. nice. They're more of a mantra whose context of intent changes as the music progresses. She also gives some great airy and vulnerable performances alongside these nihilistic and intimate song topics. The opener, I Am a Number, is a nice play on this feeling of being insignificant in the grand scheme of things until you find someone special that treats you otherwise. All Burn No Bridge is a very low-key dream pop cut. Love Saves the Day is easily the most lush offering on the album, as it is 6 minutes of wonky Baroque beauty. The instrumental palette is decently robust, so you are in for some neat surprises when certain sounds come into the fold. Most songs in general here are fulfilling towards the end. The compositions and arrangements bring about an eventful finish, which more than makes up for how scarce and skeletal the lyrics can be at times. Overall, this may be a bit esoteric for those who are planning on listening to this, but for me, I got a lot out of it and found the melancholic bliss to be pretty memorable. I thought it was great. Definitely give it a shot. I am a huge fan of Melt Yourself Down. I loved their last album 2 years ago, so of course the thought of a new album from them just had my ears salivating. The opening title song is amazing. It comes at you head on with these huge bits of bass sax and electronics that commandeer the song at will. Pair that with a lackadaisical yet emphatic vocal performance and lyrics about being judged by numerous tiring societal standards, and you got yourself a rager. The bass sax has always been a staple of their sound, and I'm so glad to hear that it still has a wide array of expression and due part to some truly masterful performances. You got songs like For Real that has a feeling of trepidation to it, the gruff as hell Night Siren, Sunset Flip, and the desert desperado funk of the closer, I Got Time. There's a good amount of variety to be had on this album with some drastic shifts in tempo while feeling cohesive for the most part. There were a couple of songs I wasn't that high on. Ghost on the Run to me easily is the weakest song here. It tries to experiment with an electric woodwind approach as the backdrop to a drearier song topic, but it's so out of place musically on the album, and it's very ambiguous as to what it's trying to be or say. Overall though, this album is great. The essence of danceability of the production that somehow works with the grounded rootsiness of the lyrics and fantastic vocal performances is really in a league of its own. No other band to my knowledge can really do it like Melt Yourself Down. I absolutely recommend this. Sasami's first album was relatively innocuous to me. It had its moments, but in totality there wasn't much that stuck with me. Her second album, however, is a massive glow up. She exhibits sounds of indie rock and alternative metal to a refined T, and it has resulted in a very catchy album. The hooks and grooves are super fulfilling regardless of how gentle or harsh the music is in the background. Songs like Skin a Rat and Sorry Entertainer have screeching guitars and visceral vocals, while Say It, Call Me Home, and Make It Right are these smoother tunes with their own tinges of country, folk, and alt rock. And the last two songs, Feminine Water Turmoil and Not a Love Song, are beautiful ways to close off an album that is just chock full of variety. A couple of experiments don't quite stick the landing, however, like the song Needed to Work, which I think it's bland despite its doomy sludge metal approach. And another overall issue would be the audio mixing. The metal songs especially sound like everything got truncated in post. I feel like improving the quality to where it is more crunchy and sound deafening would have helped give them a lot more bite. But this album, despite its rough edges, is great, and it also shows just how much potential there is in Sasami. Keep an ear or two out for her in the future. I feel like most of us are going to know her pretty well pretty soon. Also, this album art is badass. Sevdaliza has been on a big hot streak since her debut album a while ago. Her style of like weird woozing trip hop and alternative R&B is continued on this EP, showing its sustainability in different musical environments. The first song, System, is really moody with digital rainy gradients that illuminate left and right. High Alone has a smogged out atmosphere with a driving low-end rock instrumental and vapory vocals that are intoxicating. Everything is Everything utilizes dreamy synthwave, but not in a prototypical synth pop direction. I love that feeling of anxiety and deflation hidden underneath the bright neon, and Sevdaliza herself gives a great emotive performance. The Great Hope Design is the most abstract song here with its twisted vocal melodies and arrhythmic pacing. It's sonically engaging. I just wish there was more to the vocals. And Human Flow is a nice cap on the EP. It's very elegant. Overall, a great EP. Looking quite forward to what she does next. Here is a tier list of how much I enjoyed the albums I heard last week to help visualize my overall opinions. That being said, said, I would love to hear your thoughts on this episode's albums or albums that you heard that I didn't mention. Leave a comment down below. Please like the video if you enjoyed it. Consider subscribing, and thank you for watching the video. I will see you guys next time.